Uniswap has been the number one DeFi brand in crypto since its launch in 2018. But where does it stand today? I'm joined by our head of research, Matt, who'll be diving into Uniswap and its place in the market. Hey, Matt, maybe you can share some light into how Uniswap's going and its place and its market share at the moment.
Yeah, sure, Nick. I think we thought it was a good time to cover Uniswap. Been around since about 2018 or so, and we thought, hey, as we do 5 sort of altcoins every month for our members in our altcoin reports, thought, hey, it would be a good time to sort of make this one of the 5 that we cover for this month. And why was that the case? Well, as you said, it's a leading one by market share, or leading decentralized exchange, or DEX as it's more commonly called. And so far, year to date, we've really noticed this trend of it actually starting to do more volume. So that just means people buying and selling, choosing to use Uniswap a lot more than even the likes of Coinbase. So we'll get into that shortly. But that's sort of what prompted us to sort of choose Uniswap as one of the 5 ones for our recent altcoin report.
Yeah, I'm with you, Matt, there. The reason why I think it's important is because the brand of Uniswap is so big that even though there's aggregators out there that give you the best price, a lot of people are still choosing to use Uniswap for a variety of reasons. But I think it's mainly due to the brand, and people know what they're getting when they're using Uniswap. That's been around for a while, and maybe you can let us know. I think it's still about 60% market share in terms of the DEX market.
Yeah, sure, Nick. As we look at this Dune board by one of the co-founders of Dune here on mapping out all the decentralized exchanges on Ethereum, we can see here that Uniswap, as you said, is around 60% over the past 7 days. And that's been the case for really for a very long time, actually. It's been like the leader in total volume. Second here is PancakeSwap, but that's still doing, less than a third of the volume of Uniswap. So definitely a very strong leader. And, we need to ask ourselves, why is this the case? And you touched on a point there where it's weird. We often talk about this space of crypto as being, a space that values like not having to trust anything. But I think at the end of the day, we are still human, and we like to at least put our trust into like brands with a strong reputation, even when it doesn't necessarily make economic sense to do so. I think that's even like more relevant in something like crypto, where there's been a lot of hacks and whatnot. So I think it's that brand factor, but part of the reason why Uniswap has such a big, enormous brand is because like it hasn't really had a major exploit over these like recent years, where several others have. So that's definitely a big factor. And then number 2 would probably be just its usability, which sounds funny to say in crypto because nothing is really super user friendly. But I suppose relative to other sort of ways where you can exchange tokens in a decentralized manner, Uniswap, all things considered, is pretty straightforward to use. You're just swapping 2 tokens, like a stable coin for Ethereum or ETH. You might just go to Uniswap to do that. Very simple, and that has been a reason, I think, like why it's been able to retain such a dominant like position in the market, like with the Uniswap labs or the Uniswap sort of core team behind, I guess, the whole protocol, and the team that's developing products for the Uniswap protocol. They've got about 100 full-time team now, like, which just like dominates any other sort of competitor. So they're always able to keep iterating on the product and just building like a much more, I guess, intuitive sort of user experience, and building sort of education and tutorials around that as well. I think that's all sort of contributed to Uniswap's sort of continued dominance in the DEX market.
And what about the shift to NFTs? Because they made waves in June last year when they had one of the biggest high-profile acquisitions of NFT marketplace Genie. They rebranded and they've took on their infrastructure and they've launched NFTs, with the Uniswap banner. But I was quite shocked to see just how little traction it's gotten. Do you have any like figures? I know it's been pretty minimal in terms of the amount of traders actually using Uniswap from the NFT feature, which maybe be a blow, but they'll be hoping that they can turn that around.
Yeah, I think it's one thing I'd mainly put that down to is just like poor timing, or I suppose unfortunate timing, whatever you want to call it. I think the market, NFT market, had already started to tank by the time they acquired Genie, and then particularly even more so when they announced this sort of rebrand. So this is, I think their thinking was, hey, NFTs are a token, like non-fungible token. Why? And Uniswap is sort of wanting to become the place to go to transfer and swap tokens. So that I think they thought, why not
Mm.
have a play on NFTs? But as you said, Nick, they've had a really a really poor, I think, a really like lackluster sort of effort and results, I think, so far in about the
Mm.
5 months since they've launched that. I think I saw the other day that around over 40 trades had been routed through Uniswap on a day that I looked last week over the past 24 hours, compared to OpenSea and Blur, which were doing several thousand. So it just gives you a show there of of how much that has disappointed so far. But if there is a time when NFTs do come back, maybe Uniswap will be well positioned to sort of benefit from this sort of NFT offering, which they've continued to sort of tinker with since they've released it. But as you said, Nick, just the demand has just completely disappeared with NFTs probably since they've launched this.
Mm. Yeah, maybe going back to, I guess, the DEX then, because we've seen the potential deterioration of liquidity start to appear on centralized exchanges due to potential regulation. I saw some interesting stats by the block, which put the DEX to CEX spot trade volume, was hitting good highs to start off the year, although it's sort of dwindled to below 10%, but hit almost 14%, and then even hit 17% to hit last year. Maybe you got some other inputs into what's happening recently with some big market makers and how that impacts Uniswap.
Yeah, I think one thing with Uniswap that I think is, you could argue, is probably a bullish case, is the fact that how much the US is cracking down on crypto, which has forced, probably since like Silicon Valley Bank probably collapsed, and Signature and Silvergate, you've seen a lot of just harsh regulations of just crypto entities in general, and a lot of them are deciding to just withdraw from the US. And the US is still the biggest market in crypto, and it's where a lot of the market makers sort of domiciled, or at least probably like a lot of the team is working there. Probably Wintermute is an example of probably a big market maker that really helps to bolster sort of centralized exchanges, sort of market books, or order books rather. And then you've got like traditional non-crypto companies like Jump Crypto, which is a subsidiary of Jump, and then you've got Jane Street. So both of those are very big in terms of market making in traditional markets, and they've come over and opened up trading desks for crypto, and market making for crypto, which has really helped the likes of centralized exchanges. If there's more volume flowing through them, it means that it's what we call a deep market. So the market depth is really healthy, which means if I'm a big whale, which I wish one day, if I go in and put $1 billion to buy Bitcoin and I place an order, how much would that affect the price of Bitcoin? Would it move it up extremely? That would be like a shallow market. Or if it's a deep market where there's a lot of market makers sort of making the market, it would ideally mean that the price doesn't really move that much. What we're seeing in May of 2023 is that centralized exchange volumes are really going down, and their order books are getting a lot more shallow as a result of probably regulation. A lot of these trading desks and market makers just deciding to, really either exit completely, which is the likes of Jane Street and Jump Crypto, or even just to, step back and remove themselves from at least their US operations. And that can really help the likes of Uniswap, because there isn't really, market makers per se for Uniswap, because there isn't really a centralized order book. There's liquidity providers and whatnot, but I think it's going to be really healthy, and it'll really showcase, I guess, the deep markets that you can get on these decentralized exchanges. And it is why, as I get up on my screen here, we've seen, or it's at least part of the reason why we've seen Uniswap actually, do more volume than the likes of Coinbase and, well, many other exchanges, but Coinbase was the one that definitely caught my eye and impressed me that it's actually, done more volume than Coinbase for 3 consecutive months.
Mm. Yeah, it's really insight into perhaps the future of DeFi as well, because this is going to be more of an ongoing occurrence. That now it's a bit of a novelty, especially we get really excited when we see DeFi volumes, exceeding centralized exchanges. But at the moment, it still has its months, but it still remains far, far below, what's going on because the bulk still happens on centralized exchanges. So perhaps a hint into the future of where we might be in a couple of years, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, absolutely. I think it is still like a absolute a lot of headwinds for DeFi, a lot of challenges, and Uniswap would absolutely fall under that sort of umbrella. One thing that we could talk about is even the value of the token, which is still pretty suspect.
Mm.
So what the UNI token, so the UNI is the ticker. That just like all the other DeFi tokens, they've basically been in like a multi-year bear market, like a lot longer of a bear market than traditional crypto or Bitcoin or Ethereum. And that's important. It's important to really at least acknowledge that and just assume, hey, just because the volumes are going up doesn't really mean that the Uni token necessarily deserves to go up in value. And that's what we have seen over the past year, where Uni has like really underperformed. Well, it's definitely underperformed BTC and ETH, and then in USD terms, it's definitely down. I think around 70 to 80% below its all-time highs.
Yeah, and getting back into all the volume that it does, and the main question is how the token itself accrues value and how it can capitalize on that 70, 60, 70% market share. So making waves today in the forums, we're seeing another proposal for turning on the fee switch for Uniswap. This one is actually quite a progressive one, saying that it wants to implement a protocol fee equal to, I think, one fifth of the pool fee across all Uniswap V3 pools, which makes me feel like this won't happen because the other fee switches had focused more on doing it gradually and starting off with smaller pools in the market because it didn't want to pretty much experiment on the biggest pools in the market, which if you put on the fee switch, it could result in people who are, have to pay or not getting as much fees as before. They may switch and go to lend liquidity on other platforms such as SushiSwap. So this really, really interesting one. I don't think it'll pass with the current proposal that it's got. I'm not sure if you've seen it, Matt, but hopefully some sort of experimentation happens soon because yeah, the value accrual for a lot of these tokens remains so unsure in the market at the moment, especially with regulation. The moment that you say fee, token holders are going to get a revenue of fees, then all of a sudden you get into like the security talk, and I think that's why so many have just been so
Yeah,
reluctant to
absolutely. I
turn
think
on
I did just
any
check
value
that
accrual
while you
for
were
fears
talking
of
there, Nick, as
current
well. And
regulation.
Uniswap's all-time high was in May 2021, so that was about $45, and it's about $5 now. So it's about 89% below all-time highs when Bitcoin hit its all-time high, I think in November 2021. So as it's really re-emphasized, DeFi continues to be like really beaten down. And I don't really, well, I think we both agree we don't really see light at the end of the tunnel just yet, but there could be some opportunities. But on the fee switch side of things, yeah, regulation is definitely probably the main reason why they're not wanting to turn that on, just because of the whole security question about security and whatnot, or whether it being classified as a security, particularly in the US, and then also, as you touched on there, competition. I think the sort of game theory or whatever, if you decide to turn on a fee or turn on a fee switch where some of the revenues flow to Uni token holders, that implies that the liquidity providers, which today get 100% of Uniswap revenue fees, they are basically have an incentive. Those liquidity providers have an incentive to go elsewhere, which again is just something to really think about when you talk about market share. It's probably equivalent, and again, back to the question about security, it's probably equivalent to a growth startup versus an established company paying out dividends. Growth startups, you want them to retain the dividends and keep reinvesting in the company, whereas established companies, they don't really have like as much incentive to keep reinvesting their profits, whereas they have probably more incentive to just keep shareholders happy, where it is a security, and pay out the dividends. So it's probably a good analogy I like to talk about there when we're talking about fees. Yeah, that was probably the main thing there, Nick. Probably one thing before I forget is that Ethereum base layer or Ethereum layer one chain currently has like exorbitant gas fees, which is again probably a bear case for dexes. Like, yes, Uniswap is on other layer twos. However, most people are still trying to use layer one. So when you see like $100, $200 USD to swap tokens on Uniswap, when you compare that to something like Binance, Coinbase, it's probably yet another factor when you're comparing Uniswap versus others. And when you're talking about the outlook for Uniswap.
Yeah, thanks, man. Maybe to finish off there, one thing maybe we can look forward to is Coinbase's base network, which could launch into next year. Really keen to see if Uniswap deploys on there, whether that's a huge catalyst that will mean these people that want to use dexes, it's kind of abstracted away, and perhaps Uniswap is using, or Coinbase is using Uniswap in the background and executing trades on their front end, which could generate more transaction volume for Uniswap. It's an interesting one because people think they're a competitor. So really keen to see how that works out and whether they welcome with open arms, or
No,
whether they
great,
try and
great
deploy
point,
their
Nick.
own,
I think just
DEX.
as we wrap up
Really
here,
keen to see
we
how that
could
plays
actually talk
out.
about Uniswap for quite a while. There's a lot to talk about for such a relatively boring project in the case of like it's pretty like developed and established by now, but there's a lot of unknown. One more thing about security tokens and probably the threat, how it's probably the uncertainty probably hinders Uniswap or hurts Uniswap's outlook or caps its ceiling, is even you're talking about things like marketing, right? Like with this uncertainty, you don't have Uniswap out there. As silly as it sounds, like we don't have a Uniswap stadium, or we don't have Uniswap ads where they could market to the public to be like, hey, come use Uniswap. Like that is currently like a massive no because of this uncertainty about there being securities. So like really, like it may sound silly, but at the moment centralized exchanges are allowed to do that for obvious reasons. And it's probably another sort of challenge or reason or struggle for these decentralized alternatives in this sort of environment where there's this uncertainty about regulations. I know there was another thing that we wanted to touch on, but maybe just due to time we won't. But a big development is the Uniswap sort of wallet that got enabled on iPhone. I might let you close on that, Nick, because I've done quite a bit of talking, but that Uniswap wallet, maybe just explain functionally like what it actually is, but then what the significance of its like enabling or launching on Apple in particular, like why that actually mattered.
Yeah, thanks. So it's kind of a wallet and an app in one. So you'll be able to use it as your seed phrase, but then you'll also be able to execute trades and use it, in a more user-friendly way. As we know, most people use mobile. People using desktop is always dwindling as mobile has become the number one platform. So I think you might agree with this, is that to get really mainstream adoption, you really need accessible, user-friendly, safe, secure, and importantly, fun to use applications. And so this is a big one. And also because it's got through the Apple gatekeepers who kept it in the wilderness for a bit. As we know, a lot of crypto firms have had tons of trouble deploying, creating iOS apps because of Apple's tough stances on terms of monetization, but also attitudes towards crypto applications. So the fact that it got through was significant in itself, and makes me hopeful that we'll continue to
Yeah,
see
fingers crossed,
hopefully
Nick.
more
We
crypto
definitely
apps
need it
deploy
to try and
on
get more
app
people,
stores, so
more
more people
users
can
from
really
the
use this
public
stuff.
on board with crypto through the app stores. Definitely.
Awesome. Well, that was a good discussion about Uniswap. A lot to discuss, and no doubt we'll be covering it in many other reports. So if you didn't know, this was part of our monthly report series where we track and report 5 cryptocurrency altcoins in the market. So for more from us at Collective Shift, please subscribe to our free weekly newsletter. This is emailed every Friday, and our newsletter gives you actionable insights on the most important developments in crypto. So join over 10,000 people receiving the newsletter and subscribe at collectiveshift.io/newsletter, which is collectiveshift.io/newsletter.